of the chapter last time, but I'll repeat. So, the author, Mark Manson, says the following: good values are 1. Reality based, 2. Socially constructive, 3. Immediate and controllable. So, the qualities of good values, yeah? Reality based, socially constructive, immediate, and time and controllable. I commented on these qualities during the previous reading session, so I will abstain from commenting again, but I invite you to subscribe to the channel and check the previous reading sessions, okay, to discover more and go deeper. Now, bad values are superstitious, socially destructive, and not immediate or controllable, okay? Honesty is a good value because it's something you have complete control over. It reflects reality and it benefits others, even if it's sometimes unpleasant. I love this idea, and I love the saying, honesty is the best policy, and I follow that as much as I can. Sometimes I see people also, like good people, people whom I love, yeah, relatives, close people, for whom lying is almost like a their second nature. They may lie, they may use the so-called white lies regularly out of habit or out of this mental fogginess because they don't invest enough time into their personal development, personal growth. They don't have this habit and maybe skill of self introspection, like looking at yourself and this meta thinking, yeah, like looking at you from above, thinking about your thinking, yeah, this meta approach from above. So yeah, but honestly, I find that honesty is very useful because it keeps things simple. And yeah, as the author said, it reflects reality, and this is such a nice point actually. Oh, thanks for the like. We are Venom. Hi Venom. Thanks for the like. This is such a good point. It reflects reality. We are so detached from reality, like the human imagination. Yeah, we spend maybe 80 or 90% of time in our minds. Yeah, worrying about something. Oh, thanks for the other like too. Worrying about things that are non-existent. Sometimes we remember past things, but part of that memory is also imagination, you know? And guys, everyone, 16 people who are watching right now, I invite all of you to give me likes, okay? If you enjoy this reading session of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And if you like the topics of personal growth, personal development, etc., send me likes. Thank you for the third like. So it reflects reality. Honesty reflects reality. This is such a beautiful and nice point. When we are stuck in our own minds, we may think of stuff, we may remember stuff, we may say, like, oh, I should have told that guy this, yeah, I should have done it this way, or I need to do this thing. Um, that's just that most of that is just useless and it's detached from our reality and what we do most importantly. I just noticed it today. I was lying on the bed and in my mind I was building some stuff and I caught myself the moment I woke up and started going uh, to the kitchen for eating. So, this type of emotional eating, like sometimes your mind will feed you some positive thoughts. Oh, let's do this. Let's, change that. And what you do, you just go and eat, for instance. Yeah. So, spending too much time in our thoughts can just uh, uh, blur the reality. Like I'm wearing those glasses. If the glasses um, are dirty, I won't see things as they are. Yeah. So honesty is good, and keeping to honesty is very good because it keeps you close to reality, you know. So I just want to read the book more, and I won't comment on that anymore, although I could go deeper. But yeah, popularity, on the other hand, is a bad value. If that's your value, and if your metric is being the most popular guy or girl at a dance party, much of what happens will be out of your control. You don't know who else will be at the event, and you probably won't know who half those people are. Second, the value or metric isn't based on reality. You may feel popular or unpopular when in fact you have no fucking clue what anybody else really thinks about you. That's good. And in brackets, side note. As a rule, people who are terrified of what others think about them are actually terrified of all the shitty things they think about themselves being reflected back at them. Wow. Okay, I'm going to show this to uh, someone whom I love very much because this is so true. When we don't have, self confidence, when we are self critical in a very unhealthy way, this is what happens. This is what we do to ourselves. Yeah. Some examples of good, healthy values: honesty, innovation, vulnerability, standing up for others, standing up for oneself, self respect, curiosity, charity, humility, creativity. Some examples of bad and healthy values: dominance through manipulation or violence, indiscriminate fucking, feeling good all the time, always being the center of attention, not being alone, being liked by everybody, being rich for the sake of being rich, sacrificing small animals to the pagan gods. Okay, yeah, yeah. You'll notice that good, healthy values are achieved internally. Something like creativity or humility can be experienced right now. You simply have to orient your mind in a certain way to experience it. Hi, Maurice. Hello. These values are immediate and controllable and engage you with the world as it is rather than how you wish it were. Hmm? Bad values are generally reliant on external events. Flying in a private jet, being told you're right all the time, owning a house in the Bahamas, eating a cannoli while getting blown by three strippers. Bad values, while sometimes fun or pleasurable, lie outside of your control and often require socially destructive or superstitious means to achieve. Mm. Values are about prioritization. Everybody would love a good cannoli or a house in the Bahamas. The question is your priorities. What are the values that you prioritize above everything else, and that therefore influence your decision making more than anything else? Hiroo Onoda's highest value was complete loyalty and service to the Japanese Empire. This value, in case you couldn't tell from reading about him, stank worse than a rotten sushi roll. Yeah. It created really shitty problems for Hiroo. Namely, he got stuck on a remote island where he lived off bugs and worms for 30 years. And this chapter, I read it a few days ago. So again, subscribe to the page and open the live section. And there's also a playlist. I created a playlist with the name of the book, so you can go back and watch those previous chapters. That Hiro Onoa guy was something. His story might be unusual. It won't be inspiring, but it will be didactic. You'll learn something from it. Okay. Oh, and he felt compelled to murder innocent civilians too. Yeah, yeah. So, despite the fact that Hiro saw himself as a success, and despite the fact he lived up to his metrics, I think we can all agree that his life really sucked. None of us would trade shoes with him given the opportunity, nor would we command his actions. Yeah. Dave Mustaine achieved great fame and glory and felt like a failure anyway. This is because he'd adopted a crappy value based on some arbitrary comparison to the success of others. Yeah. This value gave him awful problems such as I need to sell 100 million more records. Then everything will be great. And my next tour needs to be nothing but stadiums. Problems he thought he needed to solve in order to be happy. It's no surprise that he wasn't. On the contrary, Pete Best pulled a switch and was able to measure his life in a new light. Because of this, Best, it's the last name, yeah, Best grew into a happy and healthy old man with an easy life and great family. Things that, ironically, the four Beatles would spend decades struggling to achieve or maintain. When we have poor values, that is, poor standards we set for ourselves and others, we are essentially giving fucks about the things that don't matter, things that in fact make our life worse. But when we choose better values, we are able to divert our fucks to something better, toward things that matter, things that improve the state of our well being and that generate happiness, pleasure, and success as side effects. Again, he gives us this word, yes, side effect, or uh, what was the synonym? Byproduct. Mm. This, in a nutshell, is what self improvement is really about prioritizing better values, choosing better things to give a fuck about. Okay? Because when you give better fucks, you get better problems. And when you get better problems, you get a better life. The rest of this book is dedicated to five counterintuitive values that I believe are the most beneficial values one can adopt. All follow the backwards law we talked about earlier, in that they're negative. All require confronting deeper problems rather than avoiding them through highs. These five values are both unconventional and uncomfortable, but to me they are life changing. The first, which we'll look at in the next chapter, is a radical form of responsibility. Taking responsibility for everything that occurs in your life, regardless of who's at fault. The second is uncertainty, the acknowledgement of your own ignorance and the cultivation of constant doubt in your beliefs. Well, that's healthy if the doubt is in healthy dosage. The next is failure. The willingness to discover your own flaws and mistakes so that they may be improved upon. Well, yeah, they also speak of failure in the world of business a lot. You know, when I watch some of those videos with Google CEO or some other successful guys, they say, learn to fail fast. Meaning you need to fail many times to learn, to come to infer and conclude and learn, you know, from your problems. This, in a nutshell, is what self improvement is really about prioritizing better values. Yeah, oh, sorry, I read that. The next is failure. We did that. The fourth is rejection, the ability to both say and hear no, thus clearly defining what you will and will not accept in your life. The final value is the contemplation of one's own mortality. Oh, as a value. That's unexpected. This one is crucial because paying vigilant attention to one's own death is perhaps the only thing capable of helping us keep all our other values in proper perspective. It makes me think of proverb. No, it's not a proverb. Saying a phrase in Latin. I think it goes like memento mori. Remember death. Yeah, remember about death. So yeah, the younger we are, the more we live our lives, uh, not caring about, not giving fucks about mm, what we do to our body, what are the consequences of our actions. We feel invincible. Well, it's good, to have that feeling, but as long as it is also reality based, as long as it is healthy, as long as it doesn't turn you into a psycho or someone who just feels that way without concretizing that feeling with proper actions, you know. Okay, that was the end of the fourth chapter. Now, chapter 5 is entitled You Are Always Choosing. Yeah, let's dive into it. Okay, if you have no questions or commentaries, and Isco the Gamer, I just saw your comment. Can I join? I don't mind, sometimes hosting people. Yeah, next time if you're here, why not? We could maybe talk. Yeah. Imagine that somebody puts a gun to your head and tells you that you have to run 20.2 miles in under 5 hours, or else he'll kill you and your entire family. That would suck. Now imagine that you bought nice shoes and running gear, trained religiously for months, and completed your first marathon with all of your closest family and friends cheering you on at the finish line. That could potentially be one of the proudest moments of your life. Exact same 26.2 miles. Exact same person running them. Exact same pain coursing through your exact same legs. But when you choose it freely and prepared for it, it was a glorious and important milestone in your life. When it was forced upon you against your will, it was one of the most terrifying and painful experiences of your life. Often, the only difference between a problem being painful or being powerful is a sense that we chose it and that we are responsible for it. If you're miserable in your current situation, chances are it's because you feel like some part of it is outside your control, that there's a problem you have no ability to solve, a problem that was somehow thrust upon you without your choosing. When we feel that we're choosing our problems, we feel empowered. When we feel that our problems are being forced upon us against our will, we feel victimized and miserable. Actually, this night I'm participating in a training and I learned some interesting proverb in my native tongue in Armenian. I have never heard that before. The proverb is as follows: from the same flower, the snake takes out poison, and the snake makes poison, and the bee makes honey. That's kind of interesting. I think it's similar. It's almost the same idea. Yes, about choosing our attitude. Do I suffer or do I take it as an interesting or curious challenge and try to take care of it? And whatever I cannot take care of, maybe it's an abusive partner, an abusive parent. Maybe I choose to live. Yeah, just as I did actually. Last year, I left my parental house because I had it. Yeah, just as Detox, the famous drag queen, would have said, I've had it officially. So enough was enough, and I just left that house because it was, too much. I could choose to stay there and suffer and blame myself, others. Probably I would blame others mostly, but at some point, probably I would get bitter and I would also blame myself for not taking my chances. But I'm glad I did. Yeah, yeah, I'm glad I did. Yeah, it's about my own attitude, you know. Okay, let's take one more little subheading, which is entitled The Choice. William James had problems, really bad problems. Although born into a wealthy and prominent family, from birth James suffered life threatening health issues, an eye problem that left him temporarily blinded as a child, a terrible stomach condition that caused excessive vomiting and forced him to adopt an obscure and highly sensitive diet, trouble with his hearing, back spasms so bad that for days at a time he often couldn't sit or stand upright. Due to his health problems, James spent most of his time at home. He didn't have many friends, and he wasn't particularly good at school. Instead, he passed the days painting. That was the only thing he liked and the only thing he felt particularly good at. Unfortunately, nobody else thought he was good at it. When he grew to adulthood, nobody bought his work. And as the years dragged on, his father, a wealthy businessman, began ridiculing him for his laziness and his lack of talent. Meanwhile, his younger brother, Henry James, went on to become a world renowned novelist. His sister, Alice James, made a good living as a writer as well. William was the family oddball, the black sheep. In a desperate attempt to salvage the young man's future, James's father used his business connections to get him admitted into Harvard Medical School. It was his last chance, his father told him. If he screwed this up, there was no hope for him. But James never felt at home or at peace at Harvard. Medicine never appealed to him. He spent the whole time feeling like a fake and a fraud. After all, if he couldn't overcome his own problems, how could he ever hope to have the energy to help others with theirs? After touring a psychiatric facility one day, James mused in his diary that he felt he had more in common with the patients than with the doctors. A few years went by, and again, to his father's disapproval, James dropped out of medical school. But rather than deal with the brunt of his father's wrath, he decided to get away. He signed up to join an anthropological expedition to the Amazon rainforest. This was in the 1860s, so transcontinental travel was difficult and dangerous. If you ever played the computer game Oregon Trail when you were a kid, it was kind of like that, with dysentery and drowning oxen and everything. Anyway, James made it all the way to the Amazon, where the real adventure was to begin. Surprisingly, his fragile health held up that whole day. But once he finally made it, on the first day of the expedition, he promptly contracted smallpox and nearly died in the jungle. Then his back spasms returned, painful to the point of making James unable to walk. By this time he was emaciated and starved from the smallpox, immobilized by his bad back, and left alone in the middle of South America, the rest of the expedition having gone on without him, or with no clear way to get home, a journey that would take months and likely kill him anyway. But somehow he eventually made it back to New England, where he was greeted by an even more disappointed father. By this point, the young man wasn't so young anymore. Nearly 30 years old, still unemployed, a failure at everything he had attempted, with a body that routinely betrayed him and wasn't likely to ever get better. Despite all the advantages and opportunities he'd been given in life, everything had fallen apart. The only constant in his life seemed to be suffering and disappointment. James fell into a deep depression and began making plans to take his own life. But one night, while reading lectures by the philosopher Charles Peirce, James decided to conduct a little experiment. In his diary, he wrote that he would spend 1 year believing that he was 100% responsible for everything that occurred in his life, no matter what. During this period, he would do everything in his power to change his circumstances, no matter the likelihood of. If nothing improved in that, then it would be apparent that he was truly powerless to the circumstances around him, and then he would take his own life. Oh. The punchline: William James went on to become the father of American psychology. His work has been translated into a bazillion languages, and he's regarded as one of the most influential intellectuals, philosophers, psychologists of his generation. He would go on to teach at Harvard and would tour much of the United States and Europe giving lectures. He would marry and have 5 children, one of whom, Henry, would become a famous biographer and win a Pulitzer Prize. James would later refer to his little experiment as his rebirth and would credit it with everything that he later accomplished in his life. There is a simple realization from which all personal improvement and growth emerges. This is the realization that we individually are responsible for everything in our lives, no matter the external circumstances. We don't always control what happens to us, but we always control how we interpret what happens to us, as well as how we respond. Mm, Amen to that. Whether we consciously recognize it or not, we are always responsible for our experiences. It's impossible not to be. Choosing to not consciously interpret events in our lives is still an interpretation of the events of our lives. Choosing to not respond to the events in our lives is still a response to the events in our lives. See, he repeated the sentence himself twice. Okay? Even if you get run over by a clown car and pissed on by a busload of school children, it's still your responsibility to interpret the meaning of the event and choose a response. Okay? Whether we like it or not, we are always taking an active role in what's occurring to and within us. Okay? We are always interpreting the meaning of every moment and every occurrence. We are always choosing the values by which we live and the metrics by which we measure everything that happens to us. Often, the same event can be good or bad, depending on the metric we choose to use. The point is, we are always choosing whether we recognize it or not. Always. It comes back to how, in reality, there is no such thing as not giving a single fuck. It's impossible. We must all give a fuck about something. To not give a fuck about anything is still to give a fuck about something. Okay, that's a philosophical point there. The real question is, what are we choosing to give a fuck about? What values are we choosing to base our actions on? What metrics are we choosing to use to measure our life? And are those good choices, good values, and good metrics? Okay, next subheading is called the responsibility and the fault fallacy. Okay, it's a little, yeah, 4 pages, 4.5 pages. Then responding to tragedy. Okay, okay. Victimhood chic. I like this one. We'll get there in a few days. Victimhood chic. Okay, I think that's it for today. We're at page 95. The whole book is 210 pages long. So almost half of the book is read by me for you guys. So likes, comments, super likes, paid subscriptions, which will also give you access to my course Introduction to Practical Philosophy here on YouTube. All of that is welcome. High five. Thank you for being with me and see you next time.